Oh,
Mongolian in the 1400s.
Kubla Khan.
Kublai Khan. Yes. Mongolia. They're still a thing. China can't get rid of them as much as Russia wants to take them away. They've remained independent. But this Paul, we got Paul here with us. We got Nick here with us. Both hanging in there from Texas. I'm over here in the Piedmont of North Carolina. We're just gonna have a Friday show. We're gonna talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about. That's the way Orange Podcast goes. And let me say hi to both the fellas. Hi, Paul. How you doing?
Hey, brother, man. Glad to be a part of this. This is a great TGIF, man.
Nick, we were trying to connect some people to Rumble accounts earlier today, which is that's cool. How you doing? How's your Friday going?
Oh, not too bad, man. Kept on working in the garden. Is 24 cilantro plants excessive?
No. 47 is the perfect number,
Dude,
though. So you got to up your game.
Dude, you go to Brookshire's and look at the cilantro. That is not excessive at all.
All right, let me get after it. I've been thinking about this for a couple of days now. So the Pakistan-India war, and I just watch what social media does. They freak out. They know nothing about a certain topic. They all of a sudden are experts about a certain topic, and they believe that this is a brand new war that is going to go nuclear between two nuclear, they're calling them superpowers. They're not superpowers. Neither one of them are.
They're not.
Technically superpower. And they've been lobbing rocks at each other since 1947 in this current conflict. That's 78 years. And I watch people. It would be no different than 20 years ago before social media was really big. If you were watching CNN or maybe your local NBC station, and they're making a big deal out of nothing. I think people are making a big deal out of nothing, Paul. Like, what are your thoughts?
So, yeah, I got to tell you, strategically, this is not something that's on our radar. This is not something that we're paying a lot of attention to because it has just been this way, like you say, since 1946, 46 or 47. Yeah, it's been that way with Kashmir and the Mongolians and the Indians and the Pakistans have all have their thing. But you got to understand, all three of those tribes have peacefully coexisted in the Kashmir region for years and years and years. And so it's the elite leadership that is making something out of nothing. They're literally making something out of nothing. Those folks have peacefully coexisted forever. Those guys don't fight among themselves. There's not this big thing where there's a tug and a pull and like Ukraine and Russia, where these are Russian speaking people. They need to be, it's not that in Kashmir. Those guys have gone to school together and raised their kids together and all that kind of stuff. And the people in Kashmir are like, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, what are you guys doing? Leave us alone.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think so. If you look at the region of Kashmir and what's the other thing? Oh, Jammu. So the two different cities, right? You're gonna see. So you're gonna see Muslims, and they historically have been there. You're gonna see Hindus, who have historically been there, and you're gonna see Buddhists, who have historically been there, and typically just uh, go by to get by. They don't spar with each other. This is a government issue, and this comes back to when in 1847, when the British took this area and colonized it. And I don't mean by that what you hear on TV and when people go, like when Britain goes and colonize. So what they did was they came in and said, "Hey, we're going to provide you with all kinds of benefits. We're going to expand your region, and we're going to provide you protections of the crown." I'm not talking about colonizing in the way that the 1917 project would mention the United States. So they took this whole region, Britain did, and then they left it for some reason just after 1945. Well, we were helping them win a world war at the time. They didn't have the resources. So Britain held that as a colony for almost 100 years and then just left it and vacated and created a power vacuum. And now we have from 1947 on what we have, what's been going on. And this is nothing new to people that follow global politics. They're just people throwing rocks at each other. And you could say, well, they launched a rock from an airplane. I'm still going to say, yeah, they launched a rock. This is not like modern military style, sixth generation warfare. This is not World War III. This has been an ongoing conflict. And I'm pointing the blame back at Britain for even creating the power vacuum that started it. They could have just let the area be the area, but you know, Britain, Britain at the time was empirical, and they were growing. Happens. America's done the same thing. Russia's done the same. Lots of countries. China's done the same thing. Countries like to grow their territories. Again, I'm putting the blame on Britain for this one. Any thoughts, fellas?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%. But I would actually go back to what I originally said. These people, Hindus and the other religions and stuff, have really peacefully coexisted there. They don't mess with each other. They don't. There's no, like with Kosovo, with the uh, the Serbs being the minority there, where the Albanians, which are Muslim, just mess with the Serbs all the time. There's just no evidence that that is what is going on in Kashmir. Those guys, they all go to school together. They, all of their administrative resources are combined, and they stay away from each other, because of religious ties and whatever. But they don't fight in the streets about it. This is not. This is something that's coming out of a greater administration, not the people on the ground in Kashmir.
I'd agree. Any thoughts, Nick? I don't know if you've looked into it too much, but at least on the outrage on social media.
Well, it's all stupid, and when you realize that virtually every single problem is always created by government. It doesn't matter what kind of conflict it is. Tribal warfare is happening. Even Anglo-Saxons, like since the dawn of time, and even if you look back then, that was still the tribal leaders that decided this, not the people. So it's always been people in power. Some sort of position of power makes people want to do a certain thing, and maybe one of them have a military industrial type thing. But people don't want war. Like, if you ask citizens of any country, none of them want war, you know? I mean, granted, Islam, they want to take over everything, but they don't really want war, you know? Like, none of the citizens, you could poll any country on earth, I think, and ask them if they want war. And I would say nobody wants war as far as the people go. That's what I think.
I think that's a good
Yeah, 100%.
observation. Yeah, I think that's a good observation. Yeah, and especially about the Muslims, because I would say the Muslims is not a religion of peace. They're a religion of you're going to believe the way we believe, or else. The region's been plagued by.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, Sean, in Kashmir, the Hindi religion is the predominant religion. It's not like the Muslims are trying to move in and take over that area. They're there, but they're a minority. And from what I can tell, they're fine with being the minority. You know what I mean? They're blue collar Muslims. They're like, hey, we just want our kids to go to school. We just want to have a job and make a living. And it's the administration of Pakistan and India that are trying to drive this divide. And it's the same thing they did in Yugoslavia when it broke up. It was just exactly the same formula. The media comes out and says, oh, these guys are bad. These guys are bad. You need to hate these guys, and that kind of thing.
Well, I'll even take it a step. I'll even take it a step further. I think that when you look at that area, it's always a person of power. And what would happen? What would America look like if Europe didn't, quote, colonize America? What if America was just left to Native Americans? What would it look like? That I think there's geographical differences, regional differences, and a little bit of cultural differences. That's about it between people. Would the Indians, the Native Americans, have eventually wanted technology, or did they just know that technology was, the root of all evil? They just had a bartering system, and it worked for thousands of years before we came here, and we're the ones that messed it all up. And granted, they did war with each other, but they stayed in their own areas, and it was only the tribal leaders that wanted to go attack the other villages. It's always a stupid leader that wants to do some stupid shit that gets the people killed. That's it.
Yeah.
Because that chief ain't going to be out there fighting the war, It's always a leader, let's put the pawns out there. And that's what it is all around the whole world. People don't want war. They just want to be left alone. They want to raise a family. They want to, grow crops, go work, have money, go fishing on the damn weekend, drink a beer, smoke cigarettes and drink beer with people like you guys. That's what the people want. They don't want to go to war, especially if you have a damn family. And when you look at any conflict, even tribal, North America, it doesn't matter. It's all some stupid leader and some stupid shit. That's all it is, and that's all it always will be, And they will never go there themselves. They will never send their kids. They don't believe in it that damn strongly. Anybody in position of power, anybody that wants to be in position of power, doesn't want to actually do what they believe in, if that makes sense. And I think that's where the root of all evil comes from.
I think you're making a great point. I would think post maybe like we could either look at Civil War or World War One. The American people were dragged into World War II. We wanted nothing to do with it. But let's just Civil War that was internal, and that let's do the revolution, right? I think that the men and their families who supported them, when they signed their death warrant and sent the Declaration of Independence, They didn't want war, but they knew they were going to get war, and they had to do it because, and these were very wealthy men. I've been documenting this as I've been traveling through the Piedmont region of North Carolina on the Substack. I can send you guys all kinds of photos of plantation houses, and like these things were massive, like 6 bay by 2 bay, 4 bay. Like nobody would have had a house this impressive, this big, in the 1760s, 1770s. These guys were super wealthy, and they said we're willing to risk the lives of our children, the lives of our wife, the lives of our brother, the life of our brother's kids. We're willing to risk all of our plantations and the massive 5,000 acres that we all own. We're willing to risk the life of our slaves because they're going to fight alongside us because of the tyranny of King James III taking 60% of our income and forcing us into doing this and that. They're like, what's it worth being rich if you can't have any of it and you're giving it to this dude, King James III? And I think when you look at from the Revolution, those patriots, and they were, I just explained it, very wealthy, were willing to risk everything, including the lives of their own grandchildren, some of them. I think that was a worthwhile war.
Yeah, but at the same
wars after that, we could totally agree that probably not. World War One, yeah.
But the same point, at the same point, our founding fathers were just people. They weren't government. Wealthy people, but they still had family. And when you look at the amount of people that signed the Declaration of Independence versus the Constitution, a lot of them died because of that war. But at the very beginning of it, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, they weren't spectacular, government people. They didn't represent a government. They were people like us that hated government and hated government tyranny. They were people. They weren't the government. That's what caused it. The people got together and wrote the Declaration of Independence. True. That's when the people rose up and actually fought a justified war. That wasn't some, stupid leader sending people off to die. They're like, we have to do this because we don't have a choice. So that's probably one of the only justified wars in the history of humanity for the most part is the war on tyranny. The American Revolution. That's what it was a war on tyranny, people versus the government. Fuck you, we've had enough, and we're willing to die. We stole their guns from them because they took our guns from us. So we raided the British Armory on Christmas and we shot them with their own guns in their sleep.
Well, Well, yeah, 100%. But like the whole story of like Paul Revere's ride, like most people don't remember this, and they don't teach this in school anymore. Why was Paul Revere, and he had a buddy with him, and he didn't make it all the way. His buddy made it all the way, but neither one of them made it all the way on their horses. Why were they riding to the towns in Massachusetts of Concord and Lexington? Because they were armories. What did the crown know about taking guns away from people? The crown, so the regulars, British, but the regulars, because everybody in the 1770s considered themselves British that lived in the colonies. So the regulars and the new knew that the British were going to come after their armories at Concord and Lexington. And that's where Paul Revere was riding One If by Sea, or One If by Land, Two If by Sea. And obviously they were coming up the river in their flotilla at Two If by Sea. And he made it to Concord. He never actually made it to Lexington. His buddy did, to warn the armories to bring out the militia to fight the regulars. Again, you're saying Second Amendment rights. We knew that before, as the revolution was starting.
you know, so at a certain point, you know, and we can see it in real life. You know, we've seen posts of you know, people getting killed, you know, and then some Democrat back, well, they could sure use all the AR-15s that Americans have. It's like, yeah, you know, and say in a magical scenario, you were to eliminate every single firearm from America, people are still going to get stabbed. People are still going to get murdered. It's not going to stop. You know, it's never, ever, ever going to stop. People will always kill, and especially the government. But guess what? The government will never give up its guns. They want the people to be gunless. And you look at history, as soon as the government doesn't want you to have guns, they will come up with any excuse necessary. And I was born and raised about a mile and a half from Columbine High School, the first well-documented mass school shooting. And a few of my older brother's friends were actually acquaintances with Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. They weren't bad people. They just got picked on by the jocks because they, you know, dress and acted different, and they done flipped out. And then when you look at the gun control grab after that, it's a societal problem that causes the mass shootings. You know, you can take any gun you want except for maybe like a Sig P320 and yell at it and tell it to shoot, and it's not going to shoot anybody. And you know, that I carry, and if I clear holster, I'm shooting. That's it. And but that's defensive, not offensive. And that I think when society gets fixed, people will have a lot of guns, hopefully, but it's only for defensive. Let it sit there and age and collect dust. You don't need to go out and shoot people, or, you know, or do any of that dumb stuff. I think we have a lack of respect or complete lack of regard for how everybody wants to live their life. And I think that government sows seeds of hatred. You know, like right now we have the Democrats and we have the Republicans in America. And when you look at Congress and their votes, they're awful. Every single damn one of them is awful. That's all they want to do. When Congress assembles, they do two things and two things only. They write laws and they spend money. I think we have enough laws right now that we don't need any more new laws. None. And when it comes to spending money, that money comes from somewhere. You know, they actually call our labor, what we do to provide for our family, a revenue. That's why they call it the Internal Revenue Service. My labor is not revenue for the government. That is the definition of slavery, and I thought slavery was abolished in the 13th Amendment, right?
16th.
Isn't that
14th. 14th. 13th. Right. 14th was...
13th.
Yeah, no, you're right. Sorry. 13th was abolish slavery. 14th was to give black children citizenship. Yes.
But is taxation is theft. If I work for something and somebody wants a cut of it, typically what we call that in the mafia industry, you know, that's extortion. You're gonna pay me or else, right? You know, when you don't pay your income tax or you don't pay your property tax, they take your house and they will auction it off. That is slavery.
Oh,
That is
like property tax, which is a local issue. We gotta end this, and it's gonna take a long haul of work from people like you, me, and Paul to do this. But let's get into income tax. So, income tax is 14 for sure. Right, income tax. It was brought about after the World Wars. It was meant to pay back because we had spent so much money, right?
Yeah, right after World War I, 16th Amendment.
Yeah, yeah, right. So 16th Amendment, and it was supposed to be temporary. Of course, nothing's ever temporary when it comes to income for the government or revenue for the government. I would be, and I want to make a push for an actual constitutional amendment, and that's hard work. It's 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of the states all voting in the same way. But they repealed the alcohol ban, Why can't we repeal the federal income tax? And I really think that's something we should focus on. Get into property taxes? Oh, buddy. Yeah, that's just absolute. That's theft at a level of you're literally charging people for unrealized capital gains because you don't know how much their property is going to sell for, but you're taxing them on it every year.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter how much my property is worth. That's my property. The government should not have any say so at all. You know, the market is the market is itself. And if I'm not ever planning on selling, or if I'm planning on selling, that's none of the government's damn business. None of it. And when we talk about income tax, how do we get rid of it? Well, everybody seems to think that the government is necessary, right? That's really the problem, and that's why people especially support, the Democrat liberal ideology, is that the government is somehow necessary. And I think the only way to eliminate or abolish the 16th Amendment, same with alcohol, is to make everybody wake up that the government needs us. Without us, the government wouldn't exist. If there was no people to govern and rob their taxes and extort and write laws for, the government wouldn't exist. Right now, if you were to take the whole entire federal government, state government, and local government for a month and just make them disappear, we would live life exactly like we are. Nothing would change. People wouldn't even notice unless it was, posted up, hey, there's no cops anymore, But people would still, abide by a basic civil, moral, valued attitude belief of, hey, I'm just trying to live life like everybody else. And the only thing government tries to do is fuck with that. And the only way we're going to get rid of the income tax and get rid of these things is when people realize that they don't need government, the government needs us.
Paul, you got any thoughts there? I got plenty, but
yeah. So I've got feelings on this because of my age. I'm 68 years old. My baby boy is 32. My other son is 35. Right?
I'm 36, man.
Why am I really? So why am I paying tax on a school system that I don't participate in? You know what I mean? My kids are grown. They're gone. They don't even live in Wood County. Why should I have to pay those kind of taxes? I think that's an adjustment that needs to be made. Even though I'm not retired, I'm I'm less than $200,000 away from being debt free, and that's why I'm still working, is because I'm going to get debt free. But then I'm still going to have to pay my property tax, even though I have homestead exemption, and I get a little bit because I'm a veteran. I get a little, kickback because of that. But why am I paying for the Hawkins Independent School District $500 and something a year when I'm not participating in it?
Well, let me ask this, Paul. So 240 to 270 years ago, when the separatists moved here and they colonized the 13 colonies, did they not have schools?
Of course they did.
Was it subsidized by taxpayers?
Yes.
No.
It was taught by some school mom.
Yeah, so
marm, they called it at the time, but school mom.
Yeah.
That
so
was,
the best.
She took that on. So we started coming to America in the early 1600s. So you get the Jamestown colony in 1610, which failed. You've got Plymouth Rock, the first successful one, in about 1620.
20, yeah.
And we started and we had schools, and it was K through 12 single room schools for everybody from kindergarten through high school. And I'm gonna go with no. There was no taxpayer dollars spent on that. That this would have been, whether it was a man or a lady, mostly likely a lady who was teaching. That was her thing to do for the colony, and we did that up until what the frick, 79 is when what's his damn name? God, yeah, awful president, one term awful president. Created
Joe
the
Biden?
Board of
Joe Biden?
Education. No. Carter.
Jimmy Carter, yeah.
Jimmy Carter. So and when we did start creating taxing districts, they were local for school boards, and whatever that was, it might have been a property tax, might have been a sales tax, might have been something else. We didn't get into being taxed to death on school systems until Carter, which was 79, when he created the Department of Education, the federal Department of Education, which gave states the rights to increase property taxes to build out school systems. The federal Department of Education, by being able to grant money, right, made a huge influence on over what people are taught. Now, did they create curriculum? Technically, no, but if you wanted your federal funding, yes, they did. And that's why I'm glad a lady who has literally been put through a table in the World Wrestling Federation is in charge of the Department of Education right now. Linda McMahon.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. And it was so funny that she was in front of Congress the other day doing a question and answer kind of thing. And it was so funny that Triple H was sitting behind her in a suit, and I'm like, yeah, this is so badass.
Right? Welcome to America.
Yeah.
There's a few fundamental milestones that basically made our educational system worthless. The idea that everybody needs to attend a certain grade, right? Like if you're in this age category, you're only going to learn this, right? That's the curriculum for your grade. And you don't know anything better unless you want to do extracurricular to learn what's ahead of you. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was going to school, I wouldn't understand what they're saying because, like, they would say, well, you're going to learn about this in 5th grade, but you have to memorize this now in 4th grade. Right, so that they would keep stuff from you, and that thoroughly pissed me off. And then also the No Child Left Behind Act, which has turned into some other bullshit too, to where they've dumbed down everybody to meet the standards of the lower rather than meet the standards of the higher. Yep. And when you look at something like a Little House on the Prairie approach, you would take like a kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. That would be one classroom. The 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. That would be one classroom. 6th, 7th, 8th, that'd be one classroom. To where you could see what you're learning now, and then you'd have a chance to apply it. And a lot of people right now, like I have a 4.5-year-old son, but I also have an 11-year-old daughter. She just turned 11, and she's like, I don't know what all of this means. I'm like, well, there's because they're keeping it from you. You're not seeing it in the same classroom. And
I got a question for you, Nick. Having 3 children go through the public education system, how did you handle that? And like, I saw this funny video on X, where a guy's just holding his phone up and listening to stuff teachers would say and go, every day this is me, and he go, that's incorrect, that's false, that's fake news, this is like, and I was laughing and I responded back. I was like, dude, that's me every day with, or it was with my kids while they were growing up, because they would come home and tell me, I learned this at school today. And I'd be like, no, none of that's fucking true. Here's what really happened. And they'd be like, what? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not calling your teacher a liar, but your teacher's a fucking liar, or retarded. And my kids would just look at me like, so how do you handle that, Nick? You got kids that are in school now.
Well, I only have one daughter in school. My boy's in daycare Monday through Friday, but he's actually starting to go to KU, go to the same school that my daughter went to, and I don't give a shit. I'll show up and tell them exactly what's on my damn mind. I mean, that's the way you have to.
But is she getting? But Nick, is she getting the proper curriculum? So is she what, third grade at 11?
She's going into sixth.
Sixth grade. Okay, yeah.
But in my opinion, no, man, that's a bullshit. You know, the schools right now, they're on phonics. Phonics doesn't work with the American language. There's 3 different theirs. Phonics does not work. It will never work. When you think about the American language, you need to memorize.
Math is awful too. Awful.
Yeah,
the squares.
Oh yeah, here.
Yeah, and then they're doing that shit too. It's like, well, here's the way we used to do it. Here's a pencil. Here's a piece of paper. Let's memorize some shit, because we don't truly know anything until we memorize it. So it doesn't matter what they're trying to teach us. If we can actually apply a memorized approach to something, we memorize it and we learn it for good. You know, and I'm sure everybody here knows cursive. You know, you older school fellers, you know, I'm just a young buck, but you learned it because you had to memorize it, right? Rather than being programmed on how to, you know, they're like, this is the way your kid's going to get taught. This is how we're going to teach your kid math. And then there's certain things like right now, is there any application in a child's life when they become an adult that long division is going to be necessary?
Probably, but not likely.
That's narrow. Yeah, that's narrow. Same with algebra. And algebra, as you all know, is memory work. You have to
memorize
the function and how algebra works. It's not applicable unless you're going to be, you know, go into these certain engineering or biological kind of things. But yeah, I always thought it was funny, Nick. I got to tell you, there's a movie called The Red Planet, and this it's supposed to be on
Bruce
Mars,
Willis, right? Bruce Willis, right?
Yeah, and the aircraft crashed, and you know there were 2 survivors, and one of them had a crack in his face shield, and he's like, I've never had to use algebra before, but I need to do algebra now to see if I could get back to the home base that's 1.25 miles over the horizon. You know, he's like, I've never used algebra before, but I need it now so I can see if I have enough oxygen to get to this outpost that was 1.5 miles away. That just always cracked me up.
You know, but times are changing, man. You know, right now we have every single bit of knowledge. We can go to Grok right now and actually ask it any complex question, and it will give us an answer.
Yeah.
You know, at a certain point, you know, we invented the wheel to make life easier, and that's all we want to do is make life easier. But you know, there's a difference between just beating a dead horse on something that is not necessary. Yes, a child should learn how to do just basic math in their head, you know, the flashcards, how to write, how to read, but everything else in today's society needs to be hands-on. And if you're spending, you know, a full year basically of math on how to do long division, I think that could actually go towards something more practical, like
Right.
growing
Yeah.
vegetables. You know, that's wasted time. And the kids
Yeah.
are bored, especially right now. Instant gratification. That's what we're going for here in America. You know, everybody wants it right here, right now. And when you bore the kids, I think the whole ADHD diagnosis, you know, and I was one of those guinea pigs. I was one of the first people on the Zoloft, Wellbutrin, and that kind of shit, you know.
Oh, wow.
And me myself, I just wanted something more. I'm like, this is bullshit. You know, give me the teacher would be like, Nick, are you paying attention? No, I just read the
Yeah.
whole book. But you need to be paying attention. Give me a test on the end of this chapter. I'm paying attention to the book because you're boring. Kids need to learn, and they need to learn how they want to learn.
Right.
And if they want to learn,
Right.
let them fucking learn. Don't shove them in a
Let
damn
them
classroom and sit at a damn
Yep.
desk like a cubicle, slave factory education. If they want to learn more and they're hungry about it, give them that chance. And if you don't do that, you're a piece of shit. If the kid actually wants to sit there and read the next chapter and the next chapter because they like what you're teaching them, instead of them listening to your dumb ass, let them. Encourage them to do that. They're not hurting nothing. They're just trying to make themselves better. This is curious. This is interesting. I want to learn about it.
So Nick,
let them do that.
I totally appreciate what you're saying because, like, I was always bored in school. I learned like 5th grade. I got bored one weekend. I was just bored. It was raining. I couldn't get outside and do anything. So I memorized. I asked my mom for a poster board. I wrote it out. The periodic table of elements, all of them that we knew at the time. And then I just memorized the periodic table of elements. I was bored. I think kids just want for whatever they want to learn. They want to learn stuff. And I think you're right. I'm going to go to you from a different perspective. I know many people who are teachers who say, I would love to have that open type of learning classroom, but because of the schooling, the government, the superintendent, whatever, I have to read them This Book is Gay in 3rd grade. And I've literally heard this from personal stories from teachers. And they're like, I hate my life and I wish I would have never become a teacher because I didn't think I was going to be reading This Book is Gay to 3rd graders.
Yeah. So when I was going to the University of Miami, I was working as a carpenter to help, you know, pay my bills and stuff.
Yep.
And it ended up that I got an A in my mathematics class because I got really good at fractions and reading a tape, 83 and a quarter and 8, and I could do all that stuff in my head because you had to if you were going to be, an earner on a carpentry crew, because there were a lot of guys out there that couldn't read a tape that, had to make little hash marks with their pencil and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up acing my math class because I got it.
Also, American math versus metric British math. Not everything's based off of 10. When you look at the world.
We use metric here, man. 5.56 millimeter, 9 millimeter, 10 millimeter.
Oh, the 10 millimeter is the most lost socket in any man's tool chest. It is, but if I wish we would have had Edward to come in, because he has to live in the metric system. He's Canadian. Yeah, no, it's funny. Real world measurements are American. A cup is something you can hold water in. or whatever the hell that was in your hand. An inch is an inch. A mile is a mile. So if you tell me why is a kilometer 2.247 miles, I say that's just because you're gay and you're English, and I don't like it.
Yeah, but here in Texas, and other Texas folk understand this. There's basically two forms of measurement and distance in Texas. There's over yonder and out yonder. Over yonder is kind of close, and out yonder could be fucking 3/4 of the way across the state in a 2-day drive.
I got one for you guys. So Villanova, 1 pope. Notre Dame, 0 popes. Catholic colleges in the United States. Notre Dame, with a fantastic football team, has 0 popes. Villanova, out of South Chicago, 1 pope.
Really?
Well, the new pope is from Villanova, Chicagoland. Not that I really give a
but he
crap.
also
Listen to all the Catholic followers that watch us. I'm glad you have a new pope, but come on, have a little sense of humor. We can make some jokes about him. I wish it would have been a Notre Dame pope. Why is it Villanova pope? Yeah, like you guys are all weird.
Well, I gotta say, I am beside my, and I'm Southern Baptist, but I am beside myself that the Pope is from the U.S.
I don't know if you
And
guys
he's only 2 years. He's only 2 years older than me, so I like that as well.
Yeah, that's right. He's like, so he could potentially have 20 to 30 years as a reign over the Catholic Church, right?
Oh yeah, because that's what I plan on having as a reign over my ranch.
Absolutely. Well,
I've actually done some research on him, and he is pro mass migration and relocation of people that claim asylum.
Would you expect a pope to say anything other than save the babies? Like, so that doesn't like. I don't get the outrage over that. I would totally expect a pope, which we could get into the viability of Catholicism being Christian, but I want to bring Edward in when we do this. Would you expect them to say anything different than save the babies? Like, yeah, Trump let the babies in.
Of course not. Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, you can make your arguments in however you want. Hey, listen, we still got about 10 or 12 minutes left. Hey, I want to talk about Kentucky. You don't live there. And I want to talk about libertarians. You and I had a phone call about that a little bit last night. Nick, what's your thoughts on libertarians who get elected as Republicans, but they could never get elected as a libertarian if they ran with the actual Libertarian Party?
I think that's the very definition of political ideology, and there's vote red no matter who, and there's vote blue no matter who. Then both parties are guilty of it. If you have a choice between a Democrat and a Republican, if you're a Republican, you're going to vote Republican. If you're a Democrat, you're going to vote Democrat. And I think that people are so party indoctrinated that they just don't care. They're like, this person's a Republican, they're going to take care of me if you're a Republican. If you're a Democrat, this person's a Democrat. That's really how they think. And I think that if you were to eliminate all parties, and so you can't run as a party, you have to be independent and just stand on your principles and actually have a debate, I think that would really fix America. Because as soon as you have a title, right, that means something. Kind of like the tribal stuff we were talking about, even like North America. If Americans never came here and conquered it, I think there comes a certain point where people just need to think for themselves rather than association with a party. And I think that the more parties that get created, the more confusion there is, and the more, hey, well, these people align with me, and that again, the arguments all day long, every day, with people that, well, why didn't somebody support a certain bill? Have you read that bill? No.
They didn't read the bill.
Yeah, and then like that's what it is.
No, the politician didn't read the bill.
Yeah, well, the politician and the voter, right? And there's no voter accountability. Have you ever in your life, I'm a young buck. I was born in 1988. I don't know what you guys were doing in 1988, but in your life, have you ever been
I was
asked?
riding a BMX off a ramp, doing a flip, and it landed on my head. And once I woke up from unconsciousness, I did it again.
But have
I
you
was on
ever
a
heard?
DEA narcotics task force.
Mm-hmm.
But have you ever heard of your state representative or senator asking you to vote? Here's the bill. This is why I disagree with it. How do you want me to vote? Have any of our elected representatives actually asked for our representation? And in the history of you guys' life, has any person actually sent you, gotten a phone call? How do you want me to vote on this? They don't. Once they get elected, they make their own decisions, however the fuck they want, whenever the hell they feel like it, and they don't represent the voters. They don't ask the voters. They don't say, well, I'm voting on this bill because of this. How do you want me to vote? They never poll the voters. They want our vote. Well, maybe once they get in their ass and damn office, maybe they should poll the voters. Hey, this is the issue that I'm coming across. You guys voted for me, and I want you to continue to vote for me, and I'm going to do the best job I can. How do you want me to vote on this? This is what I don't like. Here's the bill. Read it.
Did anyone
But
show
don't
up
you
and primary
think
them?
that they? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I want to hear from you, Paul. But did anyone show up to primary them when they refused to do that? They're self-empowered because we can't get anyone on the Republican side, especially. But if you look at primaries, historically, like in a general election, non-presidential, you can get about 40% of the people to show up, both parties. In a general that has a presidential election, you can get about 50% to show up in just a primary. So the primaries literally start, like North Carolina, May 5th next year. So think about that. Less than a year away. And just start picking states. You're looking at somewhere between 8 and 12% of the Republican Party will show up in primary. Tom Tillis, John Rich, the country music star, is calling Thom Tillis, and he's gunning for him because obviously he's against President Trump's nominations. We have a primary problem. We have a primary, and both parties do. All parties do. We have a primary problem where nobody will show up and fire the person that has been in office for gazillions of years or since the earth was young.
Yeah, but that's an education problem because they haven't been taught in school the power of the House of Representatives. Every single bill, every single piece of legislation must pass the House first, right? And we only have 2 senators per state.
No. It could come from the Senate. Bill, it doesn't matter where the bill is generated.
It can come from the Senate, but it can't actually be voted on until it's voted on by the House. So senators can write bills, they can write legislation, but they need to send it back down to the House to get passed, right? And then back up to the Senate to get voted on.
But Nick, don't you think when they have like I've been to a couple of Ted Cruz town halls, where when they're not in DC, they come back and our Wood County guy is Gooden, I've gone to a couple of his things and was able to stand up and, you know, say what I believed and stuff like that. So don't you think that has an effect?
I do in a regard, man, but the House of Representatives is more important than the presidential election. And I'll say that because
Sure.
every single piece of legislation that can be written or removed is through our state representatives, our Congress. So the president can only abide by the laws written by Congress. So that means Congress controls the president. But everybody only thinks the president is like a dictator. Then it's everybody wants just a king mentality, I guess, rather than the true fundamental principles that our country was written upon. And since we have offices and a yearly salary of $174,000, and they live up there and they have offices there, they're no longer amenable to the people. They no longer care what the people want. These people need to be living amongst us, talking amongst us, and before we send them up with our taxpayer dollars on a per diem basis, hey, this is how we want you to vote on this. I think the bills need to be put to the people.
But what I'm saying is, I think if you attend the town halls where like Gooden and Cornyn and Cruz put out these town halls, and you're able to grab a mic and say what you think, I think that has an effect on them, on how they vote. Do you not agree with that, Nick?
Oh, I do, but I think instead of a town hall, I think it should be way more in depth. I don't think they should live their lives in Washington, D.C., which costs taxpayers more money. I think they should live.
Oh yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
bro. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that before they go up to Washington, D.C. to vote on a bill, they need to host town halls with the bills that are proposed and talk to the people about it. This is what I don't like about it. Here's the damn bill.
Yeah.
Here's a link. Post it on every single social media thing they have. Here's a bill. Here's a link to it. I'll take a few screenshots. This is why I'm voting this way, and this is why, or this is why I'm voting the other way, and highlight it. This is what I don't like. If they remove this, I'll gladly vote for it. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
And actually ask the damn
Yeah.
voters. Actually
Yeah.
represent the people that elected you.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. It's
Well,
2025.
yeah.
Throw it out on social media and say, what do you think? There's some that do, on both sides, right? You got AOC that does it. But on our side, you've got a couple of really good ones that do it. I know we can just got out of house. Because they always talk so deep and slow. Just got out of house, committee meeting. We're talking about this, and I chose to vote against. But they're at least honest about it, right?
Yeah.
And I like that. I really do like that. At least I know why the hell.
Yeah.
And I can't, I can do a lot of things, but I technically can't vote against many of these people because I don't live in their district. However, I have a social media platform, and I can bring attention to the fact that Thom, or THOM, Thom Tillis, in North Carolina is an absolutely anti-Trump bastard, and I'm going to be bringing you guys in the near future people you can primary him with. There's 2 currently running. I'm trying to vet the 2 of them because Thom Tillis, you're on record. You got to go. I don't have any idea why you think the J6 trespassers are any different than anything that's been going on with BLM or Antifa or anything else. And I've got a problem with you, Thom Tillis. And I'm going to continue to call you Thom Tillis. I'm going to help Get you primaried. You're done. Your primary is the first week of May in 2026, less than a year from now. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to help. I do know of several candidates that are running to primary him. I will give you more information as soon as I have a better read on those candidates.
So let me ask you a question real quick, man. How hard do you think it would be for the Doge team to build a voting app? And basically everything's already written to be able to do this through the Real ID Act. But a voting app for bills. If you're interested in politics and you want to vote on how your representative votes for you, you get a text message of how your state representative, your House of Representatives person in your district, or even all of them, here's the bill, read it, or here's a few highlights on what I disagree with, and do I vote no or do I vote nay? I bet Doge could do that in a week. To where people
we already have social media.
Yeah, but this is a real life tally rather than a like or dislike. And even if somebody isn't on social media, they could still download this app, or they could have it on PC, or they could have it emailed to them, and they could actually vote on what they want their representative to do. And because if they're going to live their damn lives up in Washington D.C., which they do right now, except for very strenuous vacations, maybe ask the people. And I think Doge could somehow think about this, and it's just they're kind of like a rough idea, but there has to be a way to make the representatives represent the people through this is what I'm going to vote on in Congress. Here's what I agree with or disagree with.
To me, this sounds like a Facebook poll. And that's just not going to work for me. I don't know what your thoughts are. And boys, both of you, we're running up against the bumper. But Paul, do you have any thoughts on this? I don't like it.
I'm not crazy about it either. But I do want to say something totally off topic. Tanya's got an art show on the East Coast coming up, and different than last time. I'd like you to come.
Okay.
And we don't have to look at all the art because it's
we're
gay.
just gonna go find some historical markers and read the
damn
drink
signs. Some beers and then
we'll find a beer, and then we'll go to the next historical marker that we find on the map.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, bro.
Yeah, you don't want to do that in Texas, man. Texas has.
Oh, I know. I know. Well,
there's a historical marker every 10
Texas
feet
too, but I've been doing it all over North Carolina. Like it's a. You can follow my journey if you're one of those weirdos that reads Substacks. Because
how far are you from Bragg?
I believe 3 hours, so not far.
Oh shit! Okay, that's not bad.
Right.
Yeah, we could be in the middle somewhere. Yep.
Well, and all of this can be done offline. But to all of our watchers, by the way, I was talking with Edward a couple nights ago. You will understand this totally, Nick. A friend of ours, internet friend, was totally trying to figure out how to gain followers, and that's because nobody talks about it. So if you're watching this right now, give us a like and a follow. I know you hear that from everybody, but it's super important. That helps us get up in the algorithm to build the profile. So just like this episode, follow it. And like you'll get more of it if you like this. It won't be necessarily this. You'll get more like it. That's the way algorithm works. So, all right. Paul, we'll talk offline. Nick, thanks so much. We'll talk offline, of course, too. We are totally out until Monday. Me and Paul always come in Monday with hot topic news. So we'll see you then. Check it out.
See ya.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Oh, absolutely, Nick. So great to have you.
I don't know how to leave.
You know what's weird? Apparently the host has to just hit this button.
Oh, fucking did it.
I know. I did.